Ladies and gentlemen, please be welcome and uplifting on the presentation of Reinventing Organizations. I have like 2 or 3 points to tell you beforehand. First of all, I would like to introduce Bratia, our frontman.
Hello.
He's going to have the presentation. He is one of the co-founders of Uplifting, and he's one of the main pushers of the turquoise
Teal organization.
Teal organization's model in uplifting. Second one, there is going to be sort of after party and networking afterwards the presentation. We have a reservation in Diego Bar, which is just on the corner, right, like 100 meters from us. Yes.
Ice hockey included? I'm afraid that the hockey is playing today.
Oh, well, we can open some laptops there and like be broadcasting, maybe, if you want, or buy beer and go.
Is the laptop 50 or we can maybe we can cancel the reservation, just take
And
the
we
beer
can
and
stay
we
here.
can stream the hockey here.
That's also an option. And the third one, that's kind of quite nice bridge what you did. Please keep your questions, notes, and comments afterwards the presentation.
Are we good?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Bratia Kalenda. I am the frontman of Uplifting. Uplifting is this company that you are in. And today I would like to talk to you about reinventing organizations. We are reinventing our organization for last year and a half. And today we would like to share, where are we going? What's the new hottest trends in how the organizations can be structured if you so desire, and what are our experiences so far with this model. So a little about me. I am frontman of this uplifting gang. In classical terms, that means something like organization. Uplifting itself is 56 people. We create apps that make sense, and if you want to know more about us, just I would like to first talk about the evolution model of organizations, how the organizations of people evolved from the prehistoric ages up to now. What are self-management, wholeness, and evolutionary purpose? And what does it all mean? And then we can have a discussion about it. It's pretty nice book. I like it changed my view how I could structure this organization. It changed the view of many influential people that I know. So this is my and our journey through reading through this book and trying the ideas that are contained in it. Um, this book proposes this evolutionary model of organizations. This model is based on a psychological models of motivations of people. So first there was a model, also a spiral model like this one, for the people, how their motivations evolve throughout time, human development from child to elder. And this model was taken by Frederick in this book and applied to organizations. So I would like to show you this and how it works. So if we go through the evolution of organizations, the first type of organization there was is the infrared organization. And the metaphor that you could think about it is like pack of apes, right? Like somewhere in the jungle, just apes. There's not much hierarchy. The apes kind of like band together. If there's danger, they kind of have one like alpha leader, but that's it. And there's no division of labor and no hierarchy. Besides that, there's this alpha guy, right? And nowadays there's no organization like this on Earth. The only remnants are the packs of apes that you can kind of meet in the jungle. So then hundreds of thousands of years passed, and then we got to the purple magical model of organizations. The metaphor which is used is tribes. And this kind of organization is switched from ego thinking to this collective thinking, where there is this tribe, and the world around them is dangerous. There's like lightning and fire and like wild animals, and they don't understand what's going on. So they look up to their shamans and to their elders to kind of understand the world. And they have like a lot of magical thinking going on. So they don't understand why the crops this year is good and on the other way on the other year the harvest is bad. So they ask elders, what does this mean? And the elders are like, we have to sacrifice this newborn child to appease gods and to have a really great harvest next year, right? And they don't understand causation and effect. They just kind of like look up to the elders. If the elders understand what's going on, really, doesn't matter for those people. They just want to have a good life without fears, and that's why they look to their elders. But there are key breakthroughs, like rituals that band people together and kind of like structure the world from, like ritual of spring to ritual of like death and so on. And there's like one breakthrough is that they start to reason about the world, the people, even if it's through magical thinking. And the example is like even now you can find those people. It's the indigenous tribes in jungles and in savannas, so you can still meet them. But like let's say practical principle is evolution that happened around 20 to 40,000 years before, and that's the red impulsive organization of people. And that's the basic metaphor is wolf pack. So you have one leader, or you have like a structure of like the clan warrior, the chieftain of clan, then you have their main warriors, and those warriors have their warriors, right? And it's this like ego-driven organization where people don't care what the others want. They just care if they have the might, if they have the big weapon, if they have the muscles, if they have the numbers, then they just take it. They just take what they want. But there are some key breakthroughs here, like division of labor. So you have gatherers, you have like scouts, you have archers, you have warriors, and there's a command authority that goes from up to down. So you have this boss, then they have their lieutenants, and then they have their own people. And the examples of this that you can like see in this real world is organized crime, for example, or street gangs, and also like tribal militia. But this kind of thinking was a big breakthrough back then. But there's always some moral internal dilemma that the organizations have to overcome to evolve. The internal dilemma on this step is that you still need to kind of watch your back, right? Like you cannot be safe in this type of organization. If there's someone stronger, which has bigger muscles or is stronger than you, they can just kill you, or like you can be removed. You can have a cement boots and be thrown over the Charles Bridge into the river. So this organization has a natural size that it can grow into, because afterwards somebody will overthrow you. So the next evolution of this is what's called Ember or conformist organization, where this ego position was replaced by processes, roles, and hierarchies. So when you go to Ember organization, you are usually not perceived as yourself. You are perceived as your position in that organization. For example, if you go to school as a teacher, you are basically perceived as a teacher. If you are teacher A or teacher B, doesn't that much matter in terms of those processes in that organization. There's no much room for salary rise and kind of like stepping up to some better position because there's only one headmaster in the school. If you are a doctor in medicine in hospitals, there's only one chief doctor and there's many doctors. So it's really hard. Nobody will like appraise you for your achievements there in terms of salary and so on. But it was like key breakthrough is that you have this hierarchy of formal roles that you can kind of hide behind, and you can kind of live your life with your purpose. If you like really like your job, you can teach, you can be a really good teacher. But in terms of the organization itself, you have strict processes that cannot be bent. The way how our children are taught is basically the same for the last 50 years. The way how the army is structured is same for thousands of years, right? And the way how the Catholic Church works, that's the same for at least 2,000 years. So my point is that these organizations doesn't have any fluid structure. They are really rigid, really prone to change. They are like not able to change that fast. But you can still see them every day in schools, governments, armies. Everywhere you have this like really defined organization. And you can even tell that for example, if you talk to some army guys, right, to some soldiers, or you see a soldier on the street, you are not like, oh, that's Tom. You are like, that's the lieutenant or that's the general, because you can tell right from the start what's their rank, right? The same with the Pope and the bishops and the monks. Basically, the outside appearance gives you this rank, for example. That's a typical for Amber conformist structure. So the next breakthrough is that the government kind of like bureaucrats look from the window and they see this entrepreneur with their really fast and really nice cars, and they think to themselves, oh wait, I would like to also have this really nice car. I also want to like change the world or like achieve something. I want to achieve something. I want to be like best, and I want everyone to know that I am the best. So the next evolutionary step is swinging back to the ego, to the aspirational model, where basically you let your ego run free and you are basically fighting with each other. But compared to the red, to this crime metaphor, you are kind of collaborating with others. You are not going with power or only with power. You are going with collaboration mindset and with like kind of cooperation mindset. So this orange world is driven by KPIs, OKRs, quarterly profits, how many, cutting costs down, appeasing shareholders, and so on. So the basic motivation is money, my ego, the ego of my boss, right? And you are kind of like trying to outcompete every other competition there is. This model of organization is really typical for big corporations, especially on the management level, where they have their KPIs and they have to kind of meet their goal, right? So it's kind of like driven like a machine. You have some inputs and then you expect some outputs, and you kind of turn the knobs in terms of salaries and motivations and so on. And another really like the whole Silicon Valley culture, that's completely orange, right? You have this like vicious competition between startups for investment or for investment money. You have to like really work your ass off in the first year to kind of meet the goals, right? Otherwise you wouldn't meet the investment rounds and so on. And if you probably will start to notice that no organization is just one color. Some organizations are like yellow, red, some are like yellow, orange, some are like orange, green, right? Like there's also always mix, of course, always mix of aspects. But this one aspect, the orange aspirational aspect, that's like predominant in our Western civilization. But then something like British petrol oil spill happens, or people getting burnt out in their 40s happen, right? Like you have this money, you have this power, you have this Ferrari, but so what? You have this Ferrari, right? Like you will get burned out, probably. So the next like evolution
of motivations of this organization is why there needs to be a bigger purpose. There needs to be something else besides profit and like appeasing stakeholders. So the next metaphor is family, and this like breakthrough of empowerment of individuals, this empowerment of like values and inspirational goals. So it's not about just the profit, but it's about helping the underprivileged, helping the nature, saving the planet, making the Amazonian forest grow, for example. And these companies have like a lot of egalitarian movements. Sorry, that's like stuff like giving power, like equalizing salaries between women and men. That's like this whole stakeholder model. So it's not only shareholders that you need to, yeah, like it's not only the shareholders that you are working for, but you are also working for your employees. You are working for your environment. You are working for your community, and so on. The typical example of this kind of mission and vision and values is Starbucks, for example. They are really committed in like making the world a better place, one cup at a time, as they have it in their mission and vision. But the problem with this green communal thinking is indecisiveness. Those guys usually kind of like, they don't have much management. They kind of like take the power and distribute it over people. And they are paralyzed with decision making because the decision making involves nearly everyone in this kind of company. So we have this problem of basically not reaching consensus and getting stuck or making compromises instead of decisive directions to take. So that's the new innovation, the apex of this evolution right now. The metaphor is living organism, and this kind of teal organizations, they have this governing principles. That's the self-management, how you organize work, how you kind of like take responsibility for your own actions as an individual and team. This concept of wholeness, so you don't go to like the person that was at home and woke up from the bed is the same that went to the job and back. You don't leave anything behind. You take everything into your job, and then you take everything into the personal life. It's like basically, if you know the classical work-life balance, right? Where some people will tell you, so there's work and then there's time for rest, and you should not mix those. In those kind of companies, it kind of like just naturally flows between those two states of working and living. And actually, basically, the work is living as well. So it's more of a fluid situation. And then those companies don't have one goal that sticks with them. They have goals that change. So examples in this step is Patagonia. They create this really cool outdoor clothes, and they try to really like take care about their environment and about their natural forests and so on. And then from the, let's say, Silicon Valley kind of stuff, that's this startup called Buffer. They are openly teal. They talk about it. They blog about it. They are this social management platform where you can connect Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook and kind of send out the messages there. So this is the model that you can see in the organizations and how kind of motivations of people evolved. And if you look into the increasing rate of evolution, you can see that before like 100,000 years there was this infrared, but then the purple came, and like if you go to the Roman times, you have like this red organization. But after the industrial evolution, it's like this part of the table, it like the new models of organizations appeared really rapidly. So the need for like innovation is was really forced by this like increasing pace of innovation within the industry, and this curve, this exponential curve, is really typical for innovation, for example in IT, in increasing speed of computers and so on. So we in Uplifting try to be teal organization. I would like
practices that we have here to support these three core principles and what works, what doesn't. I will also give you some examples from other companies so you can see how we what works and what doesn't. The first big group is self-management, right? How we approach our work itself. In typical organization, you have this like hierarchy, management, different levels of management, like higher, middle, lower, right? And you have well-defined positions. In deal organizations, everything is kind of fluid, self-organizing teams. The roles are created as needed by the people that need them, and then they are basically, and the roles are destroyed when they are not longer needed. And that's some extreme of this behavior. For example, here in Uplifting, we have self-organizing teams with roles instead of positions, and we have no managers. I mean, this kind of fits for our work because we develop software. The software is developed in teams, so it kind of works for us. But if you have this, for example, model where you have this huge pipeline where, for example, there's a raw product on one end, and on the completely other end there has to be a finished product, and you have to kind of group all the people to make this happen. You have to take another model than self-organizing teams. For example, deal organizations with a pipeline kind of a product, they need to have this networked hierarchy where basically the inputs have some relationship with the immediate next output in the chain to make this happen. For example, very typical thing is that you have a lot of support personnel, especially in huge big corporations, that are organized in silos. But now I know it's kind of a little bit changing. In the teal organization, there's minimum support personnel. In that book, there's a example of having, for example, in Sweden, there's an organization called Butsorg, and they do a community care for people that are sick. And they have self-organizing teams of medical professionals, anywhere from 10 to 50 per each city. And they are basically in each big city. So it's around 5,000 people, and those 5,000 people have like 15 to 20 people in the support department, right? So it's like complete nonsense for normal organizations. Here in Uplifting, we have like 56 people. 50 people can bring direct value to the client, and around 5 people are in the support team. And it works in a way that if teams need something like to hire someone or to like spin up some servers or whatever, they can ask the support to do it for them. They can ask the support team to do it for them. But the support team usually comes and kind of teaches the teams how to do it themselves, so that the next time they can just ask for advice and kind of like just let it be just checked, so that we don't have to hire more support personnel. We can kind of streamline the organization. So this works for us pretty well. In terms of decision making, and now I know that this starts to be extreme. Normally it goes from top to bottom, right? The strategies are formed on the top of the pyramid, and then it kind of falls down to the developers or to the line managers and so on. And if you have some really cool really cool idea that you would like to have implemented, the superior can come to you and block it because he's your superior after all. In teal organizations, the decision making is fully distributed, and it uses the advice process. The advice process works in a way that if you want to change something or make a decision, you have to seek an advice from a person which role it falls under. So for example, if I want to hire someone in my team, I have to go to the HR and ask for advice. If I sidestep this advice process, that can be one of the reasons why they can fire me from the organization. They cannot fire me for they cannot fire me for making the decision. They can fire me for not getting enough advice for making a qualified informed decision. In Uplifting, so first, how it works in different companies. In Buffer, they had this like a really classical structure, and then they decided that they want to become a teal organization, so they destroyed it, have this like really flat structure, and like it was chaos. They weren't able to make it work, especially for newcomers. So you come to the company and then you ask who's responsible, who's my manager, and they are like no one, find your own whatever thing to do. So they realized that it can be a problem because there's no like defined leaders to look up to. So they after that they kind of establish this high level strategic management on top. So you have like this manager of marketing and manager of HR and manager of products and so on. How we do it in Uplifting is that we have this council of elders that works as our central nervous system. And then we have a local decision making in teams and in the, let's say, the HR and marketing and so on. This is invention that really works great for us, so I would like to share it with you. We have this like central nervous system, which is comprised of six people. They are here for strategic decision making, so where the company should go in the next 1 year. Should we move from this office? Should we start a new, for example, new technology? Should we start doing Python or whatever? But the cool thing is that it's elected by people here. It's elected by uplifters, by the employees, by our colleagues. And the way how it's not democracy, that's an important thing. It's not like everybody has one vote. We basically have this like a reward system where everybody basically everybody splits the 10% of profit at the end of the year. 10% of profit is split between people, and people chooses who should get that profit in some kind of voting. What this does is that it kind of maps the uplifting, our company, in a non-formal way. The people that get the most money from this reward system is those people that have the most influence in the company. The people that has the most let's say influence, who people like appraise the most, the people that others think that are moving this company forward or that they really like to work with. And basically we then take this top, this list of uplifters, we stratify it, and the people on the top and the 10% top of this like non-formal group gets 5 times the voting power than the people in the bottom. And that means that the people the others look up to can decide who sits in this council. And that's really important, because it doesn't mean that if there's like this council is not voted by the masses, it's voted by the people that have the biggest non-informal influence in the company. And that kind of helps us to stay in the right course of action. Okay, so investments. Investments normally are centralized, right? HR says we need to hire 100 more, managers after discussing with the high-level management, or like there's IT and then IT says we need to replace all the computers because they are getting old and so on. In TL organizations, it's fully distributed. Everyone can make an investment. So there's, for example, examples of workers in the factory looking at their machine and saying, okay, it's too old. We need the new one, or the new one would help us to be more productive. And they just, again, need to seek advice. So they go to their some chief technical officer, and they ask, can we buy this new machine? What would you recommend us to buy? And he will make a recommendation. They can kind of adjust their purchasing according to it, and then they can buy a new machine. Here in Uplifting, we are still not there yet. We have this channel in Slack called procurement. Everybody can post anything in this procurement channel, and one of the council of elders needs to approve it. But we don't block. We don't, like 95% just goes. We don't care that much, and like very little is blocked right now. We would like to get to the completely distributed system, but we are, to be honest, a little bit afraid yet to go that last mile. Another really interesting thing is the information flow. In classical organization, it's on the need-to-know basis. You get only as much information as you need to perform your job. In TL organization, it's completely flipped. There's basically every information is accessible to anyone, as long as there are no, for example, NDAs or this kind of stuff that could prevent it. Including like really sensitive, normally considered sensitive data like income or salaries. In Uplifting, we strive for real-time data access for everyone, anywhere from how many money there is on our accounts to what's salary of our colleagues. And right now we are at the point that the salary is internally known for every position, every role that we have. And we are building this Notion. I don't know if you know that software. We were thinking, thank you, Bratislav, there for recommending us. We are basically building up this Notion software. It's something like Confluence when you crossbreed it with like in terms of sexiness. So this really kind of helps us to stay on one page of what's happening in the company, especially when we are distributed and people don't know what cool things are happening over there. So this kind of helps. I really recommend to check it out if you want to have a like transparent information policies in your company. And this is also a invention that we like we needed to implement it really like early on, and that's conflict resolution. We had the problem in uplifting that there were no managers to help you solve your conflict. There was no superior to kind of go and like, I have problem with this guy, or you know, there was nobody to kind of like take you by the hand and kind of like resolve the conflict for you. So in Teal organization, the conflict is a natural thing. We consider it a natural part of life, part of work. And we have a formal process how we handle conflicts. And not following this conflict resolution process or sidestepping can get you in trouble here. The thing is that this also applies to firing someone. In normal organization, the superiors can fire someone. Since we don't have any superiors, we need to have this conflict resolution process. And if we cannot meet a satisfactory resolution of the conflict, the last step is this firing of someone. Since we introduced conflict resolution, we didn't have to fire anyone yet, because we did, and you know, not many people are fired from uplifting. So, but if it comes to that, we will use this process, and I will show you how we do the conflict resolution. So the first thing is that the conflict is a private thing between uplifters. The conflict is not shared, it's not like distributed. The toxicity of the company is not increased by the conflict, or we try to keep it as you know, one-to-one as possible. It is resolved in several escalation steps. First, the people are trying to kind of just talk, right? Like, hey, can I talk to you? I have this like issue. I would like to help. I would like you to help me with it, right? So one-to-one. If this doesn't work, or you are afraid of that another person or whatever, you can take a mediator to help you to resolve this conflict. So you can take someone that you trust both, and you can go to him, and he can kind of guide you through the conflict resolution. If that doesn't work, there are council of elders. That's the last instance. You can kind of go to our meeting, and we can, you know, try to help you solve your conflict. The point is, we are not there to decide. We are there to just kind of like use our informal influence to kind of like have a moral weight to help you resolve this conflict. If even that fails, we are voting in the council. But we saw, after we like introduced this, we saw this, you know, conflict with the mediator. It never went up to the council yet. And we have this script that the person can go through, so that it's kind of controlled. So when the uplifter invokes the conflict, it goes something like this. Hello, can we talk in private? Look, I think that this happened. From my point of view, this happened. And I feel about this, I don't know, I'm sad, or like it really angered me. This is why I think it's wrong. For example, because it's against our core values, or because the client is sad, or because the team is sad, or whatever. I need this change from you, or from your behavior, or I need you to fix this, to make it better. And what do you need from me to make this happen? How can I help you to make this change? And this so far works. And you can get our guide, how we do it, from this GitHub page. It's in Czech, but we have an intention of translating it in English really soon. And this guide was actually like checked by some psychotherapists. So it's not like, you know, it's not only from my head. It was like checked by people that kind of do conflict resolution professionally. I just want to say that this is not enough. You need to train your people for conflict resolution, because otherwise they could feel like not empowered enough to do it, or they could be afraid. So in uplifting, we are planning to have mandatory training on conflict resolution by professionals, so that we are able to do these conflict resolutions. And we would like to have a trained mediators, so people know that which of us were trained in this conflict resolution, so that they can go to them and ask for help if they think that they need a professional or somebody who has been officially trained. I'm just checking time so that we don't go way overboard with time. Okay. In case of rewards and salaries, usually in normal companies, salaries are secret, are individual. You have a guys with equal skill set taking even like 2 times that much as the guy next to him, right? And the superior or HR decides about salaries. In teal organizations, the colleagues decide what the salary should be. Usually, like the most extreme case that was described in the book is this little form where you can rate anyone that you want on 2 scales. One is how beneficial this guy is for this organization, including my life within it. And the second scale is how much can I judge this person? How often I work with him? What did I see from him from 0 to 10? So basically, what are my grounds or on like rating this person? And this is kind of rated, averaged, weight, distributed in basically from top to bottom. This is public within the company, and the people then get the salaries according to this thing and according to some model. In Buffer, they do it in a way that they have this like calculator where you can say, I will be a backend engineer in New York, and they will tell you how much exactly you would get for a full-time position. And it's public information. So if you go there, you kind of know that if you're like mid-level engineer, you will get that much, and if you're like senior, the most that you can get is this much. In uplifting, we do it in 2 ways. We have this 10% of profit that people kind of like distribute between themselves. And we also have this competency model, which is basically just a hard fact statements what you should know about on that given position. And you have mentors that kind of are responsible for you by basically like getting better and better and getting a better salary. And since the salaries are public, there is kind of like this salary field checking by uplifters. So if you have a guy like beside you and he's getting like way better pay than you can go to your mentor and ask why, and ask, what are his skills that I don't have? What should I improve? What experience I'm missing? And also, if there's a guy that's taking like way less than you and you think that he's like really good at his job, you can kind of like prod the mentor and be like, hey, what's going on? This guy should have, at least the same salary as me because he's like really talented. What are the skills missing that you are not able to promote him, or did you just forget to check with him, right? So this worked pretty well for us so far. But you probably up to this point you are probably thinking, hey Vráťa, you are completely crazy. This cannot work. And if you think about it, or you like your mental model like doesn't compute with this, I ask you what are to kind of think about the basic assumptions about the people you work with or the people that are under you or in your organization. Is it that they are lazy, they don't want to go to work, or if you let them the freedom, they will be, they will just slack, or if they would know the salaries of others, they would be jealous, or this kind of stuff maybe. Our core assumptions is that uplifters are kind and fair. They want to be motivated and bring value, and they want to take responsibility for the things that they matter to them, and that no results can be achieved without happiness. And this kind of basic presumptions are in every teal organizations, and they are not just hidden somewhere. They are in the core of the culture. And without those basic presumptions, you cannot implement such stuff because you would be too suspicious and you wouldn't trust your people. So that was the self-management. Then you have this like wholeness. We started with the self-management and we are pretty far with it. But this whole wholeness thing, to kind of like not leave anything behind when you go to work, to kind of like bring you, including the dog and including your worries about the family, right? Like your whole self to the job. That's something that we struggle with, that we kind of like are in the process of implementing. And it starts with the values and basic rules. Because in Orange, the values, the mission and vision is usually in like empty promises and kind of empty words. hanging somewhere on the street so the gardener can read it and your employees can read it and your right, but nobody kind of like it's very rare that somebody lives by them, and actually that you would get fired if you don't like pursue those values. In teal organizations, those are basically really clearly defined, and if you violate them, that could be one of the very few reasons that the people can kind of like let you go from that organization. And it helps to create safe environment, the safe boundaries within in which this game is played, to put it simply. In uplifting, we have mission and vision, and we have like codex with values. Our vision and mission is really simple, right? But we create software, so the software can be like a lot of different stuff. But then when it comes to our mission, it's really really specific, right? So it needs to be meaningful and help someone. Very important is that it has to be good fit for our people, so that we don't kind of like do something that nobody wants to do here in our company. The app has to be ethical. We actually have an ethics channel, so anyone can kind of block the project if they don't want to work, like if they think there's serious ethical problems with that project. And of course there's things that for the customer as well. We have to bring value, then otherwise it doesn't make sense. And we have to have we have to be nice for the end users, otherwise it also doesn't make sense. And this kind of stuff have every company that in the teal organization, and it's not just somewhere in the world. It's something that they kind of it's basically the basic brainware that their employees run on. So when every employee makes a decision, it kind of looks on these values or this mission and makes the decision like according to it. We have the codexes of uplifting, which defines our values, and you can see our values here. It's not as like marketingy and really nice as buffer values. This is the buffer values, and they have like, you can see that some marketing person work on it. It's like really nice, and but this is like also the core of their culture. So that's the first step. Another thing is symbols of power. In normal classical organizations, you have like this huge symbols of power, right? Like you have this like private office for the CEO, sometimes private jet, and there's like receptionists with like really nice skirts and like really professional, right? And symbols of power are everywhere. In teal organizations, they are nowhere. For example, in uplifting, we have something which is called "Hey bro" culture, which is just that we talk normally, openly, face to face. And I don't even have a like seating place here because I don't need it. Like people that write code need it. I would just take space. So yeah. Or this like social responsibility thing. In Orange organization, it's usually a tool to shape public perception of that company. But from teal organization, everybody can start a charity, everyone can start a notion to change something, and it's not done because it shapes public perception of that company, but it's done because it's right. It's right by the goals and vision and mission of that company. In uplifting, we give a little bit of profit to charity. We have the ethics channel, but that's still not enough. So this is something that we need to improve, and we are starting to do something like Rails Girls, for example, but still not enough, and we would like to improve that. And the last part is evolutionary goals. For example, how the competition is normally perceived, right? Competition is ruthless. We have to crush them. We have to defeat them. It's us versus them. But in teal organizations, it's completely flipped. They are your partners in achieving the common goal. Of course, if your goal is making profit, then this cannot work. But if you have some higher goal that you want to achieve, like for example, like Bill Gates Foundation or something like that, then it works. In uplifting, we actually call our competition bros. So it's like bros from Top Monks, bros from E-Man, bros from Unicorn, and we really like that they do great software. So and we really like to learn from them. So yeah. We don't think about it. In terms of profits, in Orange organization, it's like you have to meet this quarterly profit or there will be no bonuses, right? And it's predictive indicator. So you kind of like look what will be the forecast of the profit. In deal organization, it's a reactive indicator. If you have profit, you are doing something right. That doesn't mean that you are not like forecasting the profit, but you are not trying to kind of push the organization in a way which would like make more profit if you would compromise your values or so on. And the last thing is that normally in like completely only orange companies, like if it's completely orange company, the company doesn't really care about your personal goals and visions beyond the work. You know, maybe you want to have a family, you want to sail the world, I don't know. And like they kind of like talk about it with you, but they don't really that much care. In teal organizations, your personal mission and vision and so on, that and like what you would like to achieve as an individual in the life, that's basically one of the core principles is that you should like the teal organization should take care of it or kind of take it into the consideration. In uplifting, we strive to offer jobs, and we actually even tailor the job positions or the job roles that you will take to help you achieve your personal goals in life. And this is only the beginning. We would like to have this program called Spirit of Uplifting, where we would portion some virtual FTEs for people to just like take the money from the company and do whatever they like. I don't know, maybe you want to teach everyone else how to fish, or you want to build some really cool gadget here to kind of like, you know, you just like to build gadgets. So we'd like to have a money in the company and resources to do just that. And what does it all mean? You know, we live in the world where there's like global civilization crisis, like global warming, the crisis of soul, the burnout, the starving and poverty and everything. And you know, most of the companies in this world is created and kept going, and their main purpose is to make profit. That's their goal. That's what the shareholders want, and so on. But that doesn't help us to solve those crises, anywhere from the spirit to the global warming. And so I would like to talk with you about how to build an organization that could like tackle those problems. And what is the next evolution step beyond companies with self-management, wholeness, and evolutionary goals? Our goal in uplifting is to optimize for good lives of our customers, of our employees, and of the shareholders. That's our goal, because we are not in the position where we can yet tackle the bigger problems. But what are your goals, and how can we get there where we can tackle those big problems? Thank you.
So, I have two things for you. First of all, we managed to have the hockey streaming in Diego.
Okay, so we have hockey.
We have hockey, first of all. Second of all, we also have here our guest for panel discussion, which is Eliška Čejková.
Okay.
She's on the side of the Orange organization.
Ne?
No. Well, she was part of the panel discussion during Tuesday session, so I think, and it was quite nice, so I think it would be nice also today. Please don't play with the mic again.
I'm sorry.
Oh, we have this stools. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I will make it. Blank. Here we go. And we can maybe turn on the lights.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Oh, you look so beautiful.
So Eliška, I don't know if you know her. She's organizing a lot of events in the IT tech scene here in Czech Republic, from Women Tech Makers to Google Dev Days, right?
Yeah, Google User Group.
Google User Group, right? So,
it's deep history.
and currently, she's a Scrum Master in Mall Group. So, a pretty much orange company. and so you can kind of compare the two approaches and yeah, shoot away if anyone has any question.
So first question. Okay.
First of all, thank you for the presentation. It was very interesting. I was actually compelled by the group when I found out about this book to actually get the book. So I'm going to take this as an intro to the book and start reading it. So I'm not going to bother you with the technical details about that. But I would like to know, for example, how does that concept of teal organizations, how does it work in the marketplace? Because it's all great if you take it out of the ecosystem, but what is outside facing the ecosystem is a different reality, I would say. So how are you facing those challenges?
Oh, okay. So the first thing, actually, the way how we approach with this teal transformation is that when I found out that this book exists, we already implemented we didn't know that we do it, but we had like 60% of practices already in place. So it wasn't this challenge that we had completely to change our business model or anything like that. But the point is that this organization is still committed to bringing value to customers, and the incentives are aligned to bring this value to customers. So our colleagues, our uplifters, have the reward system and everything kind of like aligned with the interests of our customers. So this company still makes money, still brings value to the customer, and I think when we would kind of the interesting hack about teal organizations is that they can actually create more profit than just like in terms of the size and everything. They can, with their effectiveness, they can create more profit usually than just purely orange organization or purely green organization. Or that's how the book describes it, how we feel it about it, and that extra profit can be then used for the higher order goals, to put it simply. But I think that you cannot go against the market. You still have to be true to adding value to this classical economy.
Sure. I mean, if I wouldn't be working on a similar idea to create let's say a better working relationship in organizations for the future, I would ask for a job with your place, because it looks like you're doing a good job. How long ago did you start implementing those things, those changes?
So Uplifting was founded 5 years ago, circa, and we had some of those principles we had right from the start. We just didn't know it's a teal organization or it's going there. But we started like nearly a year ago right now. So a lot of the stuff that I've talked about is year old right now.
By the way, we are hiring.
Hello. So first of all, thank you for the presentation. It was really interesting to hear. But for me, those kind of stuff are nice to hear, nice to see, but it's visible. It's like really small organization. Let's say 56 people. I would say it's still a family organization. How would you scale it up? So let's say you have a corporate where you have 1,000 people. How would you manage to scale up, or how do you imagine that could be scaled up?
That's a really great question. We are tackling this. Even like people start wondering what's happening with this company where we were like over 20 people. That was when the family kind of, where the family kind of were gradually ceasing to be, and something had to replace it, right? Something had to replace it. Even like it either had to be a hierarchy or values basically, and we chose values and some like ground rules of play. But we are still really small, right? Like compared to the scale you are talking about. So in the book, there are examples of companies having thousands and tens of thousands of employees running on this kind of stuff. I think the biggest takeaway about these big organizations is that it's not completely flat. Those organizations still have some leaders. I wouldn't call them managers, that they are leaders. And those leaders can be regional, can be for the amount of people. For example, there's a company that owns some power plants around the world, and each power plant had this role of head of power plant. Those guys didn't have any formal role over the other guys running the power plant, but they are very usually so inspirative, so like their character was so in line what the company tried to achieve. They had a lot of, let's say, influence over those people, and they were kind of able to coordinate their local cells well. So this is not about chaos and so on, but I don't think the thing is that there's very little amount of companies running this stuff in this kind of big scale. So for example, I can give you one more example. There's this company called Morningstar. They do ketchup. They do ketchup in the USA, and they do it for like, I don't know, they do 60 to 80% of production of ketchup in the USA. So it's a pretty huge organization, and they have this pipeline stuff. It's like thousands of people, right, needs to be involved in this. And what's more interesting, it's a seasonal business. So it's like it has a peak around summer, and the way how they do it is they have this chain of relationships, kind of a network that's like flat like this, and basically people are, they have some strategic vision that is distributed to the people, and you have some people that kind of like oversee or kind of helps others to organize the process on each stage. They are not their, let's say, managers, but they kind of help each other. They know the process. They can kind of, you know, help them to know the methodologies, kind of look that everything works. But the critical point is that every season, every person does basically creates a contract between the people behind them in the process and the next in them in the process. You know, that I, as this role, will deliver you this amount of basically raw tomatoes, and in this time and in this quality. And this for example, these contracts are compared every year, and you should keep them at least the same, or, you know, increase your production if you are getting more skill. And this is the way how the 60 to 80% of tomato ketchup is made in the USA. So I think there are examples, but it's so far from our normal world that I cannot even like properly describe it. Probably, the structures are there. I just cannot like, I don't even understand how they do it. Yeah. But based on these principles, maybe if you have anything to add. Or
No, actually I'm from the Orange company, and we're trying, I'm not even dreaming about achieving like a teal company status. We're at least trying to have the green label, but it's really hard because we're already growing so fast and people are not ready to move on, and I can't even imagine to be a teal company like tomato puree,
Yeah.
Morningstar, whatever that's called.
Yeah, maybe I forget to tell one very important thing. You cannot create a teal organization if the shareholders and the board and the CEO is not up for it. This kind of management cannot be pushed bottom up, and actually a lot of companies described in this book ended in a way that the shareholders took over, replaced the CEO and board, and the company went back to the orange practices. Some of the companies were the culture was destroyed in times of crisis, and some companies were destroyed just because they didn't generate enough profit for the shareholders, and they want to, you know, have a bigger control over what's happening in the company. So, yeah.
So hello. Thank you for the presentation. I was wondering when you said that the employees are determining their own salaries themselves.
Mm-hmm.
How does it work in a more broader sense? So what's the maximum of the salary?
Mm-hmm.
How are the salary changes decided?
Mm-hmm.
Who decides, for example, what portion of the profit of the company is kept aside in a special bucket?
Okay, that's really great questions. I think every company has its own model. For example, in Buffer, the whole strategic plan from their leadership is known to the company, so they know how many money the whole company is spending on salaries, how many on advertisement. So everybody kind of knows where the money goes. So they are not like, this company is making so much money, why we don't have that money, right? For example, here in Uplifting, we are pretty open how the money is distributed. We have a certain percentage of money goes to, from each project, a certain percentage of money goes to the people, the direct people that kind of, you know, program or test or whatever. Then certain percentage of the money goes to the support teams and to you know, having an office and having like a hardware for the guys, and certain percentage is the profit of the company. and this profit is then basically we are also open what we do with the profit. We have most of the profit is kept within the company, just that we are able to grow and kind of like be able to kind of dampen the really bad periods that every company has. Another thing, what I'm thinking about doing is to kind of like set myself some ego stop, like some stop point where any more profit for me personally would just fed my ego unnecessarily, and kind of like every profit on top of it should go to either to some cause or to the people that are working for me. And so when the company scales to I don't know 500 people, I would have the same profit as I had when I had 50. But that's fine, because my goal is not to make profit, like this amount of profit.
Question was, who decides the ratio?
Okay, so in uplifting, in like extreme teal organizations, the people. So the boundaries are set by HR, for example, and it's usually a percentage based. So it kind of like scales with the organization, and then the people decide in that range that was decided by someone who's responsible in HR. Where the people are. In uplifting, the Council of Elders decides what should be the maximum, for example.
Can I have a follow-up question? Different one?
Okay.
Thank you. So the second question is, how do you cope with the gap in age?
Mhm.
I'm not sure whether the people I've seen here today are a representative of
They are
the
pretty
average
representative,
age,
yeah.
but I've seen quite many young people.
Mhm.
I haven't seen
Yeah.
a lot of old people, or
Mhm.
older,
Mhm.
more experienced,
Uh-huh. Mhm.
age challenged.
Uh-huh. Okay, yeah, that's also a great question. We are actually kind of like getting to the point where we have to solve this question, because there are like when we started, the average age was like 22 maybe here, right? Now the average age is 26, 27, 28. Okay, sorry.
Around
Okay, so
Radek?
okay, we have like also really young people. But anyway, the point is that actually I have this kind of two companies right now building up. This company was founded as a young company, and it really works really well with young people. And it's like, which has this like kind of like drive to innovate and everything. But then also I really love working with the current gang of people, right? And I kind of have to tailor the job and find a job that would suit them. I have to find a kind of like more, for example, enterprisey stuff to do, where the pay is better for us. And this is like something that I'm really public about. I'm really public about that. There's actually two uplifting groups forming within this organization. One is uplifting, the original one, which is this young, really like innovative people writing mobile applications and startups. And then we have this something we call uplifting enterprise, where the salary is a little bit better, and it's more enterprise. You have to be kind of like in suit sometime to kind of get the deal and everything. But that's just the way of life, because people have families, they have they need to like build houses or whatever, and I have to support them. So I'm just really open with the guys about what are my intentions when I am creating, for example, this uplifting enterprise.
And doesn't it feel sometimes like employee and employee premium type?
Okay, that's
Because why can't a
Mm.
young guy be in the enterprise mode?
Yeah, that's a really good. Okay, so we actually don't discriminate. If you are a young guy and you have the skills needed, you can be in the enterprise. But the skills needed for that kind, if you want to have a really high bar of service, you still need to kind of do something simpler first. Another thing that what we do, I like to think about it like Jeff Bezos does. He has this AWS, right? This like server farms, and that's the main part of his business, and that makes insane amount of money. And he takes the money and then destroys its competitors by like undercutting the prices. In I don't know, in avocado business or whatever, in watermelon business, whatever. He does it all over the place. The way I am approaching it is I don't want to undercut competitors. I want to artificially increase the salaries in other parts of uplifting thanks to the income that the uplifting enterprise brings to the company. So the inequality isn't that big. Right now, that's my wish. We will see how it goes. This is really new for us. Yeah, still.
And I would also add, it's not about the age, but it's about the professionality and the seniority of the, like, how the people are grown up. And yeah, really sometimes happen when, I don't know, like 21 person is able to like manage the enterprise project. But sometimes like the people who are over like 30, 35, they are not able to. So then there is a clash like between that. It's not about the age, but it's about the professionality and the seniority of the people.
Can I assume that all employees decide on who is more and less professional? Right?
It's actually in the competency model, or like it's we are actually building this competency model for the enterprise because we don't have it yet. I think the guy is responsible for doing it, he's actually including, for example, some certifications that are required normally for this kind of work. You know, AWS certification, Java certification, and this kind of stuff that we didn't have historically, but the clients really appreciate if you. So, for example, even this plays a role right now.
I was just asking because it looks like a place where I would expect a lot of friction if there is a lot of sociocracy, you know, involved.
I also expect a lot of friction. The only way how we can go through it is when we have a clear, you know, when the intentions are clear and I as a leader can explain how this works, because otherwise it wouldn't work. I think there will be actually even now this system kind of works because when we have people sitting with our clients in some enterprise, those people have an extra salary on top of their normal salary. We call it, and you know, we love our clients, but we have this inside humor. We call it work in enemy territory, extra, right? But we, you know, that's just a joke. But anyway, this is something that that we do already. So it's just about like normalizing this kind of extra benefit to a normal benefit that you get when you work for an enterprise client, and you have the skills necessary.
Maybe you should rename it Orange Surplus or something.
Yeah, something more. Let's say, yeah, Orange Surplus is really nice.
I have another question related to the financial aspect.
Mm-hmm.
So the shareholders or the funding, how does that work?
You mean here or?
Yes.
Okay. So basically, Uplifting was funded with my 100,000 crowns, 50,000 crowns of which I borrowed to my partner so he can found it with me. So, I mean, I was never under pressure to kind of see profit from here because even if I would be just a normal programmer, I would have a good pay. And I think that is what makes this possible. If I would be backed by external investor, I would have to be, you know, then I would have my hands tied. This way, I can attempt to create a company which has some more value than just bringing, you know, creating profit for someone who had the money in the first place to fund it.
I'm going to add to this. This is the huge difference between our two companies because we have a lot of investors, a lot of money we need to make, and we are like profit driven. Because it's e-commerce business and you just need to have the numbers. It's we can't do just things we like, we have to earn the money, otherwise we're dead. So that's even harder. So this is really nice to hear.
Yeah, well, we can also go bankrupt in 1 or 2 years. Hopefully not, but you know, it's like this model, like the book says it's proven. I wouldn't be so sure, right? There's also like when I talked about the spiral model, there are dark sides to every part of that model, from red to orange to green, and teal has also its dark sides that are kind of skipped in that book. One is what the buffer found out, that people are really lost. It's not play. It's really hard, especially if we don't have this wholeness part implemented yet. So it's really hard for people that are unsure of themselves to kind of strive in such environment, because the guidance is really, or the acceptance of people differences is really hard when you don't have any like managers that kind of like keep the balances, right? So this is something that we need to work more, and I think that this is some dark side to it, and this is like this chaos that can really quickly sprung if you are not careful.
Well, we have managers where we have chaos, so.
Yeah, and then in Orange, usually if you don't have management, there's chaos like by default. So.
Well, the level of maturity needs to be definitely on a high level of each and every individual for this to function.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's also a reason. I think that people here, which are, I don't know, for example, 19, 20, act to the outside world as they are like if they would be like 24 or 25. That's because if they didn't, like internally, they couldn't work in such a company. So it kind of like forces people to grow up really fast, because there's the first moment when somebody starts a conflict resolution with you, you have to man up and be ready to accept criticisms. Otherwise, you wouldn't like it here, probably.
So I just want to follow up that question, because it was interesting to hear the answer. So can you imagine some like a clash of those two colors in the way that you ended up in the middle?
Oh, you mean
in the way that for example, there's the color that it's missing, probably, which is maybe somewhere between the orange and that one. Yes, there was something which we care something, but we were funded. That was the color. So can you imagine like different color, which is actually, going through the teal into the orange?
It's the green level, I think we're talking about.
It is not. It's the way that we be acceptable by the corporate. It would be acceptable by the corporate, but it's still trying to be striving for that values, which is not the green one.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I think I will. Okay. So the point is that this model also works for individuals. The individuals, when they are born in the infrared phase of just caring for themselves, wanting mother's milk and everything, and kind of goes through all the stages up to, somebody is stuck with yellow, this amber in some system, somebody is this entrepreneur or kind of like works in orange companies. The sad thing is, if you kind of evolve beyond your organization, you will leave that organization usually, because you cannot, like the green people cannot work in orange companies. Usually if you are completely green, you cannot just like support these oil barons or whatever, right? That just doesn't work. My point is that it's really hard for teal people to be directly deployed within orange organizations. It's really, and the only way how we can deal with it is to reframe it. To reframe that our mission is also kind of help them to see what's beyond their color. And we actually made a startup about this. It's called DX Heroes, and they improve developer experience within companies that are, for example, completely orange. And people are kind of frustrated and burned out. So actually a startup was born from this. And the next color was beyond that. They are actually kind of like hypothesizing what's there. I think we need to get back to the spirituality, basically, to the internal core reason why you are doing things, why the companies are doing things, and And I'm not now talking not about the ego. I'm talking about your, and now it gets hard, right? Your inner self, your better self. You can name it, your God, whatever, right? This kind of person that is not directly normally accessible to you in the normal waking consciousness without meditation or let's say some other stuff, right? But I think that this needs to happen in the whole society, and hopefully, yeah, that's my opinion. So some like renaissance of spirituality, and I'm not talking about churches and the classical religions. I'm talking about the pure spirituality, basically being okay with yourself and what you are doing on this world.
We have a lot of people who are too comfortable at their own positions, at their own state of being, I don't know how to call it. And if you would try to force them or even just motivate them to go towards the teal or cherry pick some of the aspects, it would not work, because they're just too used, they're too comfortable at their own, it's like right now. Some people are not ready to have their own, I don't want to say will, but decision-making power or right. They're just really comfortable to be driven and not have to decide anything. And there are other people who would love to go teal, but the rest of them are not ready, and it's really hard for individuals. So when we were talking about the scaling up, and what Bratja was just saying, it would be really cool to try that. And we are trying with like, I don't know, the Spotify model or the agile development, but some people are just not ready, or they just don't want to do that. Even though it would like suit the company itself, we have to stay orange in some aspects. So that's it. But I'm a real fan of the teal companies. just to be clear.
Okay. So any more questions, or are we good? Okay. Okay.
Like, I think we now live in an era where it's like the young people are finding it hard to like get motivated to do stuff, like to find a meaning. And how do you think like a company can help with that? Like, I guess there were some points mentioned, but maybe some.
I think that now in Czech I call it spovykaní mileniálové, but I don't like. No, that was just a joke. Anyway. I also sometimes find hard, like I am pressed hard to find, meaning in my work. And I think it's this struggle. Everybody has this struggle in himself or herself. I think that the point is, in that book, the organizations of the future are described more as a mission bearers, as a vision bearers, as something that you join when in certain part of life you are resonating with that mission, and you leave the company when you are no longer resonating with that mission. And I think this fluid, this one company is not for your whole life, and it's a natural thing. And this kind of like that the companies should have these missions in front of them, and that's what people should choose the companies by. That's, I think, the main solution for this problem. And the companies should not, like, if the people want to go and build the huts in the Amazonian forest, they should let them just go, because it's all about the resonation with resonating with the mission of the company. And this should be fluid as the life is.
Well, I totally agree with that. If you don't have the meaning in the work, it's too hard to stay in one place. And I can see it actually in all age ranges. It's not just about millennials and young people, but also the people who know what they want from their life, like where they're heading and what's their goal and what they want to achieve. It's hard to stay in one place which is not suitable for you, or you don't find the meaning. And we have lost really good people just because of that, because they were working on projects which didn't make sense or were like too old, and they were just saving a corpse of legacy code.
I actually realized that we are going without a break, so maybe one last question, and then let's kill it, because
what you said really resonates with me. But let's say a challenge. What do you see is the biggest obstacle for the future for this to actually work? Because I mean, I think we all agree that this status quo needs to be changed, and
I think it can be called ego backlash. The thing that your ego will basically take over, and you will fall back to orange thinking. It's really hard on ego to work on teal organization, because you have to go with kind of like you have to kind of like be really open with people around you, and I struggle with that daily, because to found a company you have to have a pretty big ego, and then go through this and be okay with it. That's the hard stuff, and this battle is fought on every individual level, not only in me but in every uplifter here, because of course you can go into a courage company, get 3 times the more money, but just because you are the only one that was given that money, and everybody else is, for example, because the salaries are secret and so on. So there's always this kind of like secret stuff that, you know, this kind of like devil's apple that you can kind of go after on the ego level. And yeah, so that's the main obstacle for this to work. And you know, this goes back to some spiritual evolution that needs to happen within the society, I think.
Usually the greedy jerks are falling back, I can tell.
But they can bring the whole company down. So that's the problem.
Okay. Any other questions? Last one? No? Okay, so I would sum it up. I would really love to thank you, both of you, Bratia and Eliška. And right now, so we are moving to Diego Bar, where is going to be the hockey streaming and also some networking and discussion. If you want to grab something to eat here, there is also a lovely kitchen, but they do like burgers, ribs, whatever, also vegetarian food. So it's up to you if you want to take
There's
something.
some fruit and some little things there, so please feel free to take something.
We can like network here for 5-10 minutes and then go to Diego. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.